I mean, I remember the story of Aaron when this happened, and the first thing I thought of was, how are you going to tell this story for 90 minutes at all, or tell it at all?
Yeah.
You know, so that must have been the first challenge was...
I always felt, my reaction to it was very simple. When I read it, the book, I always thought the only way that you could ever go through this experience and what happens at the end of it, the only way you'll ever be able to watch it properly is if you go through the experience with him. Because it's so unthinkable, and people's natural reaction to it is to go, I could never do that. You think, and they even say, I could never watch that.
Right.
And I always thought, yeah, you can, because you would do it as well. And so the only way to really be able to perceive it, if we portray it truly, is that in some way you want him to do it. You want him to get out of there, and you want to help him get out of there in some way.
I mean, I've never had a reaction to a character before. I mean, I literally, my heart was pounding. I mean, I really felt you were Aaron for those 90 minutes. I mean, what was it for you? Was it more challenging mentally, physically? I mean, to sort of tap into his psyche is incredible.
It was challenging, and in ways that I maybe I didn't anticipate. You know, Danny, I think, was trying to prepare me. You know, before we started, he would say it in a joking way, but tell me that I'd probably go crazy while I was in the Canyon set. And I've had directors say that before, and what I usually translate it as, oh, they're gonna push me. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
I'll be fine. And I was fine, but I've watched a friend of mine shot some behind the scenes stuff, and I've seen it recently. And there were some scenes where I'm talking to Danny, and I say, oh gosh, I think I'm losing it a little bit. Yeah. So I guess it did have a toll. Especially, I mean, a lot of aspects to it. It was, I'm isolated. I'm in the canyon. A lot of, some of the scenes are very physical, but. And we shot 6-day weeks, so it was a very unusual acting experience that was incredibly rewarding, but it was
incredibly
exhausting.
Intense. We all knew what was going to happen, and we're waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
Were you worried about making it too graphic? Because it is hard to watch.
It is, but it is very accurate to the book, and that was always our judgment, that we should stick very closely to the book, so that we would neither sensationalise it, like in a horror movie, nor would we trivialise it. You needed to present it truly, so that what he goes through is extraordinary, but it is a story, it's a passage even in that, and it takes a long time. These are extraordinary machines we live in, and you can't just, like in movies, it doesn't happen like in the movies, it's tough, and he has to get through that, and it's so we wanted to portray that faithfully, really, and I'm glad to say the only guy who can judge us
is Aaron.
Yeah, and he's quite pleased with it. So
right, for him it must be like a rebirth watching this. I mean, I can't even imagine how he must feel watching you take on his character and his experience.
Yeah, I think it's a really emotional experience for him. Every time I've been to a couple screenings with Aaron, and the first one I was sitting behind him, and he kept leaning over to his wife and whispering, and I thought that meant that he didn't like the film, but it turns out that he had been crying for over half the movie.
Oh my God! And
I guess was leaning over to her for support and stuff, and then also at Toronto, he was very emotional. So I think it's a way for him to share the experience with his family and friends, and I think that really hits him.
And I know, like, award season's coming up, and of course everyone's already talking, but is it more rewarding, the fact that Aaron's crying behind you in certain ways, than to be standing up on Oscar night getting an Oscar? Or which, maybe not.
Well, you hope that, I guess you hope that, whenever you do a true story, you hope the person, accepts it, or, is pleased with it.
He's been very generous to us like that. And he was very generous to give us the story in the first place, because obviously it does involve a loss of control. He gives us the story, and we said we wanted to tell it in our own way, and that we hoped we'd be faithful. But there's no way of judging that until he actually sees it himself.
And how much was Aaron involved? Because you spent time with him hiking a little bit, and then obviously the videos were a great source of material.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time with him. We spent a couple days where he would just walk us through everything that he did and what he was thinking when he did that, and just because that a lot of our ups and downs are just these little physical things, and so he just gave us all of that kind of material for us to then shape for our dramatic arc.
Right, and I read somewhere that you're scared of blood.
You did.
I don't know
You went
where.
deep. You went deep in your research.
Not
talked to
very
my
deep.
doctor?
Page 23.
Is it in there? Yeah, I don't like having my blood drawn for checkups or that kind of thing.
So for a guy to stab himself.
Apparently, Aaron says he's not very
No, he's not very good
around
at
blood
no,
either.
that's
Yeah,
right.
so somehow he got past that. Yeah.
Right, but what about yourself? I mean, to watch yourself.
And I did too. But also on that documentary, there's a scene where I tell Danny we're working on the arm scene, and I say to him, "Oh, I think you got a really true reaction," because I was starting to get really lightheaded because the prosthetic was so well done. Not only on the outside but inside. It was there was all the musculature and veins and nerves and everything in place. So.
Right. What was it for
So
you?
it kind of fooled my head, I guess.
For as a director to be pulling that off, I mean, just the idea of that little knife that he's cutting, and I mean, that must have been some intense footage to look back on in the edit room.
It was intense to watch when he was doing it because we would do very long takes. We had this amazing guy, Tony Gardner, who built these arms, and then James would work at it for long, long sections, and we'd watch it on a monitor, like just a regular monitor outside the canyon. And it was very intense watching it then, and I could tell people would walk away from the monitor who were watching it over my shoulder like that. And if we get caught up in it like that, and it's like, we know it's a fake arm and everything like that, you thought, I think we're doing it properly,
Right.
we're doing it correctly.
But what do you say to somebody? I mean, to survive this movie. I mean, it is kind of an intense story, and why do you think it works so well that we get so caught up in it?
Empathy. You put yourself. I mean, that's what we wanted to achieve, and it's obviously a tribute. It's a bit embarrassing saying it in front of him, but it's a tribute to his performance, is that you can put yourself in his position and you feel it with him. You go through that journey with him, and that's what we try to do. And I think if you do that, I think you can get through it because actually you want to help him do it. And even people who've had an intense reaction to it do say afterwards when they wake up, great movie, by the way.
When they wake up off the floor. So you ready for the award season again? I mean, I feel you're going to be revisiting it like Slumdog again.
We had a wonderful time with Slumdog, and we did decide to use that opportunity it gives you to make a film that wouldn't normally get made. And that's what's wonderful about it for us, is to be able to use the credits that it gives you to do something that would normally a studio would shy away from as being too difficult, too challenging to market. So it's wonderful to be able to bring it back, having made this. So we're very delighted to have the film out at this time of year so that people can, because it's a difficult film in many ways, but so that people can look at it not just at one weekend, which is normally what happens with movies, but can give it a bit of a run and a bit of a... Because there's lots to talk about it.
The story of the miners, ironically, sort of unfolded at the same time of this movie. Is that something that's just, you feel is just waiting to be told on the big screen?
It's an extraordinary story.
Right.
And I remember the reaction, and they did get a camera down there straight away. As soon as they made contact with them, almost immediately there was a camera went down, one of these little digital cameras went down and saw them. And that sense of we want to be with them is one of the forces that works in this story.
Right.
In a weird way that pulls him out of there is our empathy with him, his need for people, which he realises now he's taken them for granted too much before he goes in there. And that magnetic elasticity pulling people back together is really powerful in the story, and you feel it in the miners as well.